staring up at the ceiling, warm in my bed. I couldn't help but think about the day I just had with Mrs. Adler. In weeks to come, all I could think about were the Pritchard boys. I saw them every day. At least once a month, I'd hang out with Mrs. Adler. She was pretty funny, and always making something really good for me to eat. So one day, I asked her to come to my house. It was Halloween night. She said I didn't have to worry about making dinner because she'd bring some steaks. This time, I made a peanut butter pie for dessert. So after work, I stopped at the liquor store and bought what I thought an old woman like her would drink. I found a pint of whiskey for her and a bottle of port wine for myself. It was going to be a fun night. While we ate, I told her about my guy friend and how great things were going. Secretly, I hoped she'd tell me more about the Pritchard brothers. The only way to find out was going to be to ask her about it. Cautiously, I took the liberty to ask her how the Pritchard brothers became Scarecrows. By now we were sitting on my porch as she took a long swig of whiskey. She leaned back in her chair, looking into the field. I figured you'd be curious about that. So, since you want to know, here goes. One late night, I drove out to their place in my pickup truck. The best hour to do these sort of things is right before 3 a.m., the witching hour. That's when spells work the best. Reciting an ancient incantation, them boys came out one by one. They were sleepwalking. Imagine, if you will, the Pied Piper. To them, they thought they were dreaming. I loaded them up in my pickup truck and silently drove them back to my place, where I stripped them naked. I burned their clothes and then tied them up to the posts you see out there. My mind reeled about how she was able to fasten young men to these poles. Looking at her intently, I asked, "Well, Mrs. Adler, are they alive out there?" She shook her head no, saying, "They ain't alive in the way you and I are. Their souls are bottled up in my house where no one can find them. Them boys are shells of what they used to be. People like myself have a way of separating the soul from the body, leaving behind just enough life for someone to stay alive long enough to do what I wanted to do. My grandpa taught me how to bring someone into complete submission, and I want him to stay up there and keep crows and critters away from my garden." There was a long silence between us. When she finally said, "Tonight, I'ma feed 'em, and you are more than welcome to come and see how I do it if you'd like." Heck yeah, I want to see. We drank until I could muster up enough courage to go into the field with her. We went to her house to get her stepladder and her mysterious bucket. It was filled with steel-cold oats. As we walked into the field, she informed me that she fed them oats to keep their strength up. She didn't add any sugar to it, just plain oats with milk. and that's all they'll get. Can't feed them nothing with spices in it, or they'll try to come down from where they are. In the field, I watched her place her stepladder to the base of the first scarecrow. She climbed up and shoved her hand into the bucket, bringing a handful of oats into her hand, and shoved it into the opening of the scarecrow's face. It was amazing to watch as the once still scarecrow came to life and began moving its face to eat. It was fascinating. I was so glad to have polished off the entire bottle of wine, because I wouldn't be able to handle what I was watching now. By the third scarecrow, I felt bad for the Pritchett brothers. "Mrs. Adler, will you ever release them?" She looked down at me from her ladder like I was crazy. Now why would I do such a thing when they did so many horrible things to me? They deserve to be up here. Don't you go feeling bad for them. Don't you ever. And even if they came down, you wouldn't be able to do anything for them. They are in many ways dead and lost forever. The scarecrows were trying to vocalize, but no sound came out. Mrs. Adler patted the scarecrow's shoulder. There, Lyle. It'll be all right. You eat up, you hear? You and your brothers will be all right. Carlisle and Uriah had their dinner. Don't you spit it out. Go on and eat. For some reason, I felt so sorry for them. There was nothing I could do to help them down from the hell they were locked in. I'm not going to go against a witch, or I'd end up the fourth scarecrow in her field. I'm sure of it. All I knew was I had to be so careful when it came to this woman. In many ways, she was sweet, but she was so frightening. I'm so thankful I did not ever open my mouth about Mrs. Adler's scarecrows or how they came to be. No way. After she was done feeding them, she stepped off her ladder. "Well, I'm done here. I'm going to bed. Once you're done, you should go to bed too." Staring at Lyle's ankle, I could see part of his leg. It was gray, just skin and bone. She left me there in the cornfield to stare up at these poor scarecrows. They were somewhat alive, but there was nothing I could do to help them. Mrs. Adler and I didn't really talk much about it after that. We were still friends, but from a safe distance. My mind struggled with how heartless she was. Almost a year later, I decided to put the house up for sale. I can't live here anymore, staring out at those scarecrows day in and day out. My plan was to move to the city. I couldn't stand to see those poor souls in the field, wasting away to dust. Just to show that I had no hard feelings and that her secret was safe with me, I sent greeting cards every holiday to Mrs. Adler. She would send cards to me too. I don't know if she was trying to be funny, but she sent me a Halloween card, wishing me a ghoulish Halloween. On the card was a lone scarecrow with two black lifeless eyes and a crooked, jolly smile.